So today for our career seminar, we have Dr. Ryan McEwan, who is from our biology department. He's the director of the EVB program, and he's going to be talking to you about everything internships, which we have to do in the EVB degree. So take it away, Ryan.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So yeah, this is Internships 101. It is sort of targeted towards environmental biology students because EVB students have to have an internship to graduate. However, anyone can benefit from this. So if you're another major on the call, that's great. And if you're an EVB student, at the end, I'm going to do a little, I have at the very last thing, a Q&A opportunity for that actual course, the EVB internship course. So stay tuned and hang on if you have questions about that. Okay, so this is the agenda. Why should you apply to an internship? What kind of internships are there? Where can you find one that fits your career goals? And how do you create a competitive application? So it's a little awkward. I mean, normally I would say, hey, just ask me a question, but it's hard for me to see. Maybe you could chat something if I go along. If you have a question while I'm talking, it's okay to interrupt. But anyway, okay. That's the agenda. So why should you apply to an internship? To help you decide whether a particular career occupation is what you want to do. It helps you build your skill set. It grows your credentials, so it can add an item to your resume or CV. It gives you an opportunity for networking. I think this is very important. It gives you a chance, for example, if you get an internship, and we've had people get internships all over the US, you get an internship in Montana or something. Then your boss in Montana will know you, who you worked for and who you interacted with. And maybe there's other people in the internship if it's like a big group, like an RU. Now you know all those people and they're from all over the place. So this networking piece is really important. It allows you to have a new person to write a letter of recommendation instead of just your UD faculty member, instead of just a UD faculty member, like your academic advisor. If you have someone you work for in some institution or organization, off campus, that's a really strong letter if you have a good internship. Also, as I mentioned, that it's actually required for EVB, but if you're a bio major or some other major, there's probably opportunities where you could take the internship and then get curriculum credit. We have a thing called BIO 421 in our department, which might work for you. There may be other opportunities as well. And also, you can get paid. And so a lot of internships and all the ones and I'll talk about this in a little bit later, but all the ones I post on the EVB jobs post, which goes to all bio and EVB majors and other majors as well, they're all paid. I don't post any. We try really hard. There's a lot goes through, hundreds and hundreds go through, but we try to filter out any unpaid internships. And some of them you get paid quite well, actually, like an NSF RU internship. They would pay for your flights. They would pay for your room and board, and they'll give you a stipend that's like $4,000 or $5,000 or some number like that. So it's not at all volunteering. It's actually an opportunity to make some money in the summer as well. During the semester, it's a little bit trickier. It's hard to get the paid one during the semester, but those are also somewhat possible. Okay, also new skills. So at the University of Dayton, we can give you knowledge in your field to some extent. There's courses we offer, obviously, and labs. However, an internship is an opportunity to build some totally new skill set. And oftentimes students, for example, if you're interested in wildlife biology, we don't have the kind of classes you want in our department, but maybe you can get an internship where you get that kind of experience anyway. So you can develop some new skills. It can also show you how other researchers or other universities do things. You'll interact with people from other departments or other universities, and you'll learn some new ideas. And these new perspectives can be really important. And the other thing that's really important is that the perspective you get from an internship can really help you decide, like, for example, I got an internship in wetlands. I really want to do wetlands, but then you spend the summer and you're literally in a wetland and there's like a lot of mosquitoes, a lot. You might just be like, no, that's not the thing for me. Or we know the classic is somebody has an internship and they're going to like work with animals and they're doing stuff like injections or taking blood and they start to pass out. You say, well, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to work with plants instead, for example. Okay, so those are some reasons why. I want to talk for a second about barriers. What would be things that would prevent you from getting an internship? And the most important one is this thing called imposter syndrome. And actually, if you're on the call already, you're starting to break through that wall, but I do want to talk about it a little bit because I think it's a really important thing, a really important consideration. Imposter syndrome is sort of the idea that you feel like you're an imposter, or you feel like you're alone. And students oftentimes feel like they're the only one. They imagine that they don't know what to do, but others already know what to do. People have their career plans all planned out, but I don't, and I'm an imposter therefore. But that's not actually true. The reality is that a lot of students, most students in college, do not know what they want to do. You're not alone, and you're among people who feel the same way. And even if I've advised hundreds of students by now, a lot of, even some students who show up and they're like, this is my plan. A lot of times those plans don't work out. And so I just think in general, you shouldn't feel like I'm the only one. A lot of students are very nervous because they don't feel like they know what to do yet. But part of the process of college is figuring that out. So you're not an imposter in that way. And if you're in the session, you're already being proactive. So you're kind of ahead of the game. Okay. Also, another piece of imposter syndrome is students often feel like imposters because they alone don't have the skills they need to get an internship. Like they might not feel like, since they've never had a job in biology or doing sort of science stuff, that they can't possibly be successful in the application. This could feel really scary, but it's also not true. The reality is most internships are designed to give you the experience. They're designed to start with a student doesn't know anything. Just like basic skills like reliability. You're not going to steal things, right? You're not going to start fisticuffs with your colleagues. Like those are really that people are looking for. They're just looking for people to bring a good energy and spirit and be hardworking. And they're going to give you all the skills. They assume that. And so this is like a really important thing for students to get over when you're doing your applications. You don't need to be like, well, I really need to know a lot about insects, or I can't get an insect RU or internship. No, not true. They're going to teach you that. That's not what they're looking for. If you have some experience, great, but it's not something that you need to worry about or feel like you're an imposter. You can't do it. Okay. Students often feel like imposters because they alone don't know how to apply to an internship. They have no idea what to do, and others already have a plan. But the truth is that most students actually don't know what to do yet. And this session will get you started. And you definitely don't need to feel like everybody else knows what to do, but I don't. That's another sense of being like an imposter. This imposter syndrome. Also, here's a really important point, is that applying to an internship itself is a skill. And think about that carefully. Applying itself is a skill. So the more you apply, the better you'll get. This is like going for the rest of your life, actually. The more that you do these applications, the more you'll start to understand what's being asked of you. You'll have a good sense of what you need to do to get your materials ready and so forth. Getting started can oftentimes be the most difficult part, actually. So that's what we're going to work on. Oh yeah, so here's a barrier. This is like I think this is the most important barrier, actually, which is a blank screen with a cursor. It's like the idea of having to start. If you've never written an application for something, you've just been a high school student and then a college student, maybe you worked at like a Starbucks or something, but now you're going to try to apply to work for a faculty member at a university or work for the National Park Service or something, it can feel really intimidating. And you're just like, oh, I just got to start typing out this application. And it can be just that first step can be really nerve-wracking. A blank page and a cursor is one of the most important barriers. And I think it's one of the most important barriers of career development for students too, because it's just like, I'm too anxious about getting started. And so we're going to try to break that down for you here. It feels very scary to get started. Oh, it could also feel boring. You could be like, this is the last thing I want to work on is my job stuff. And it also brings to the forefront things students might not want to face. Like you got to face your career coming, this scary thing. You're a junior or something in college and you haven't figured it out yet. You start to feel more and more anxious. And so there's an anxiety piece to it that the blank page and the cursor can generate. There's also so many other things to do. College life fills you up with things that are just like, oh, the next thing on my checklist, or like the physics quiz or something. And now it's Zoom and you've got to keep track of emails. There's just so many things to do. And so like applying to jobs that are some far distance, like it's going to start in June, it's really hard to get that at the top of your priority list. I think these are all barriers. So here's some antidotes to these barriers. And this is kind of the most important part of the seminar that I'm giving today, actually, probably, is these things. Um, here's my steps for you to do, students, on this call. Step one, create a folder in your personal Google Drive, or if you've got something similar, not the UD one, because the UD one goes away. Like the next 1 year after you've graduated, it just disappears suddenly and you don't even know it's coming. So you want this stuff. What you start here is 15 years from now, you still want access to it. So create a folder of some kind, not your UD account, because that will disappear. And you can name it professional development or some other thing, some happier name if that sounds boring. If you do that, you're getting started. You should do that before you go to sleep tonight. So you've got your profession, and you've already probably got some stuff, but just go ahead and get that done. So you've got that done at least. You've got a folder. The step two is, that's step one. Step two is establish a block of time each week to work on your stuff, your professional development stuff. It's time for you to focus on your career. Set that aside, and I put it on your calendar like this. If you got a Google Calendar, here it is. 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturday. Or just pick whatever time. If you're like, oh, I'm a night owl, I just, 2 a.m. is when I get my best stuff done, which is some people, I was like that in college. Whatever it is, set it up, and then don't let anybody put something on top of that. Just nope, not gonna put something on there. Your teachers aren't putting it on there, your friends aren't putting it on there, nobody's putting stuff on top of that block. It's there. If you don't do that, you're gonna just you'll just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the Frisbee thing. I'm not gonna focus on this. Not 2 a.m. Frisbee, but anyway. And then just each week start working on your stuff, because what you'll find is that there's stuff to work on every week. You got to have a CV and a resume. You need to work on cover letter stuff, your narratives. You need a list of references. You need a work history. These are all things, because what happens a lot of times to students when they apply to an internship is you get started, and then like if it's a USA Jobs thing, for example, this is like a website you might have to go through or something. A thing will pop up on the screen. It'll say, enter your work history. And if you don't have it, you just can't just in the middle of, Tuesday at 3 o'clock, just suddenly have it appear before your eyes. You can't track that stuff down. You need to have done it ahead of time. So if you have all these things, work history, list of references, cover letter, and you don't know what you're writing to yet, so you can't finish your cover letter, but get started on that and have a CV or a resume that you feel really good about. If you have all that stuff, building that will take a while. If you start working on it each week, starting tonight, then when it comes time to make an application, you'll have that stuff at your fingertips. You just like open that folder and I got to put a list of references in here. Who was it? It's going to be this faculty member in my class, blah, blah, blah. You got all that stuff. You can't just like log on to Google and try to track it down. You've already figured it out. And then obviously the job search itself, you need time for that. So, you're going to need to spend time searching for internships. Now we're in COVID. So last summer was a lot of things were blanked out. So it depends on the timeline for the vaccine, but I really believe that we'll have internships again this summer. Wait and see. Okay. And then you make applications, of course. So you can use your time for those things. Okay, what kind of internships are out there? So we've got, so I have actually, maybe afterwards you can email me I don't want to click on this link, I think it probably will break. But I actually have actually every week I send out those EVB jobs posts. At the top of that is a link to this website. It's actually like a whole bunch of job boards packed together, so you can search there. Okay. Anyway, so what kind of internships are there? We've got NSF RUs, agencies, individual faculty, local groups and companies, and nonprofit programs. And I'll talk about each of these with a little bit of detail. Okay. The first and probably best and most important kind of internship is an NSF RU. There are an enormous number of RUs, dozens or hundreds of RUs. I can't click on this link again. Unfortunately, I think it won't work if I tried that. It'll mess up. But these RUs are in pretty much any area of biology or environmental biology. This one is just an example of the University of Delaware College of Earth, Ocean, and the Environment, the Marine Sciences Summer Program. This would be an example. Now, one really important thing to say about NSF RUs is that You might look at that and be like, oh, University of Delaware. So that means Delaware students go to that RU. This is not correct. Actually, there's a limit on the number of students who can be from the university that it's hosted at. I believe it's 2 and they have 10 or 12 total. So actually being not as University of Delaware student is your advantage. Oh, got a question. Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, you just posted it there, I see. Okay. Yep, so in the chat, oh, I did try, it's gonna work. Yeah, so this is that jobs, thanks Chelsea. This is this jobs website I have. It doesn't have everything here obviously, but there's a lot, there's a lot of, and these are job boards. Let's just try it. I'll try it, see if it works. So this is the NSF RU site, for example. And so this is alphabetical. And again, you can find that, and Dr. Prather just put the link in, put the link in the chat. But it's easy to find if you just look like, remember my name, put McEwan, Dayton, ecology into Google. You can find my website very easily, and it says jobs right at the top. But this is an example of the NSF RU sites in biological sciences. It's here arranged alphabetically by the name of the university. So this is Alabama State Nano Bioengineering, for example. Here's American Museum of Natural History, Systematics, Evolution, and Conservation, and so forth. And you can see there, it looks like there's 30 per page, and there's 7 more pages. I don't know how many pages are. So there's hundreds, I would guess, of RUs, or 100 or something, a great many. And each of these has like 12 students or something in them. And there's almost anything you could possibly imagine. Like here's a Great Lakes ecosystems one. Here's one, next generation sequencing from beetles to beer. Pretty much anything you could possibly want to do, plant conservation, you can find in here. This is like the best one. In NSF RUs, they're the ones that will pay your flight, they'll pay your hotel, and they'll pay your food, and they'll pay a stipend. I knew a student who had one called in Arizona, the Biosphere Project or something. And I think she got $5,000 cash, and plus they bought her flights and they paid for everything while she was there. So those are the best ones to get. Okay, so that's NSF RUs. And again, anything you possibly can imagine, you can find in there. The only problem is the flashing cursor and getting started and getting yourself focused and getting yourself moving on it. Okay, there are a lot of other kinds of internships. So here's an example of an agency. So this is the Ohio EPA. Again, this is kind of environmental biology focused this session. But the Ohio EPA is an example. They have an internship program every summer. I assume they just kept going because they have really, they have things they have to get done every summer. Like, oh, we have to sample every lake in the state over a 5-year period or something. So they have a lot of really great internships every year. We've had that person from the Ohio EPA show up on campus before to try to recruit people. You can also get an internship through individual faculty. So a lot of times, and again, because of COVID, it was rough last summer. I'm not sure about this coming summer, but there's going to be an explosion coming up once the vaccine is developed. Because I know a lot of faculty members are asking for extensions on their grants and stuff, and they've got a lot of pent-up need. And so this is an avenue I think that's going to open up for folks in the future. So what you can do is find an individual faculty member who's working on something you're interested in. Sometimes you can find someone who's just, for example, if you're from Pittsburgh, there's Pitt, and there's, I don't know the universities in Pittsburgh, but there's multiple universities. You could literally just email someone there if you're in Pittsburgh now, or you're going to be back home in the summer, for example, and see what's happening with individual faculty that way. You can also potentially get an internship or work with individual faculties while you're at UD. A lot of faculty members in the department have students work in the summer in their labs, sometimes during the year as well. COVID is making that hard, but generally speaking, faculty have students, undergraduate students, working in their lab or participating in science in their lab in an experiential way in the summers and also during the school year. Yeah, sometimes there's money available. A lot of times, for me in my lab, for example, in the summers for the last like 10 years or something, we've had students every summer, not last summer because of COVID, but before that. And we found ways to pay those students. It wasn't quite as generous and as nice as the NSF situation, but still there's money available. There can also be course credit available. And just to give an example, this is a student named Michelle Little. She started working in my lab actually as a freshman. She was just interested in research. And at first she didn't really know how to do anything. This is the imposter syndrome piece, right? She didn't know anything about whatever, just like, where's the lab? I don't even know how to get to, what's a lab? Like nothing, right? Starting blank slate. And then she got started and just was helping out, like sorting leaves or something, very simple at first. And sometimes students do that and then they just like, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. Or they just stop, or they go I want to go to med school, actually, it turns out, or whatever. But sometimes students get more and more interested, and Michelle's an example of that. So she was, didn't have any skills, but her skills developed through time. And so she had this sort of research experience while she was a UD student, actually. And we ended up, in her case, ended up writing a manuscript together later. And she ended up being the first author on the paper. There it is. So now she's a grad student at Miami University working on lake biology. So that's just like one example. Not every student turns out like that, partly because not every student really wants to have a research experience or doesn't get revved up in that way. And sometimes the data sets don't work out. I'm not promising that if you get involved with a faculty member, you'll publish a paper. But I just thought it would be a nice example. This is just this last spring is when she finished up. Yeah, she's now at Miami University. So that's like individual faculty. Another example of an internship is local groups or companies, or probably this last summer again because of COVID was rough, but a couple of examples regionally, and this is an environmental biology kind of session again. So sorry, this is not sort of biomedically oriented, but like Audubon, Allwood Audubon Center has a bunch of internships. They have things for people who've graduated as well. They have you can live on their campus. I think they have like little like quasi dorm kind of set up there. Glen Helen used to have that as well. They had this naturalist internship and training program. And if you're, from St. Louis or something, you can just look up local organizations, and they probably have stuff in the summer. The Metro Parks has internships. If Missouri Botanical Garden would have internships if you're in St. Louis, for example. Most any big city has centers like this, Metro Parks, and other sorts of organizations that are conservation organizations or other organizations you can get involved with. And they'll have internships posted on their website, and you just go there and apply. The application process for an Allwood Audubon internship would be totally different probably from Glen Helen. This is part of the reason why I was saying before, you want to get that folder and have all your stuff in it. So then when it comes time and you go, oh, I'm going to apply to Glen Helen, you've got your stuff ready. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and then some nonprofits. So these are some big kind of nonprofits. Sort of classic examples in the field of ecology or environmental biology is this conservation and land management program out of the Chicago Botanical Garden. If you're from Chicago, this could be a really good one. I'm not sure they have facilities for you to live there, but this one does. Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek is a very well-known ecological research facility, and they do have places. We did have a student, an environmental biology student a few years ago who went to Cedar Creek, and she lived there for the summer, and maybe it's like a dorm style kind of living, and with like dining and some big dining area, and she did some insect stuff there. And Archbold is another one. This is in Florida. They have live-in, so you can live there. It's not quite as nice as the NSF RU set up, but it's still really nice, and you have a great experience. So these are some examples. The student who went to Cedar Creek, she wasn't from Minnesota at all, so she was from Pittsburgh actually. So it doesn't have to be that it's in your local area. You can travel there to a nonprofit internship. Okay, good. So how do you get going on this? So think about an area you're interested in or a place you'd like to be. You can just use Google and look things up. You research what they have to offer for students, and then you make your application. You just get started. And luckily, you've already started your folder with all your stuff in it, so you can just make your application. One thing that I do for the environmental biology program, but I also post this for any bio major or other majors. Is this EVB jobs post. That's hard to scroll because there's a lot of stuff there. It's too much probably for any student to like look at each one of those and look each example. But definitely it's a cornucopia of opportunities that you can just take a look each time we send it. If you're looking for internships, we try to go out into the world and download internships and post them there that we think students would be interested in. We try to only put things that are paid and only things that seem reasonable for our students. You know, we don't like post postdoctoral positions in there or faculty jobs or something, or jobs where you have to have a master's degree. It's really, really focused on UD undergraduates. So if you're just like, I'm a sophomore or something, there should be stuff in there that you could apply to. And you should think that too, because we've had sophomores in their sophomore summer between sophomore and junior get internships, for example. So you don't have to wait until you're a senior or whatever to do this. And so which we try to send that every 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes I get overwhelmed in my job, so I don't get it out as often, but we try to keep that flowing. And so that gives a lot of opportunities. And if you're not getting those jobs, if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you can just email me separately after and I'll make sure you're added to the list. Like I said, I sent it to all bio and EVB majors. So, and it shouldn't go in your spam thing. Maybe that's a possibility too, but just let me know if you want to get those. You haven't. Okay, where can you find one that fits your career? I already mentioned this. I showed you this already. These are just, and I won't go to it now because Dr. Prather already shared that and I showed it for you. But each of these is like Morton Arboretum, that's a particular place. That's in Chicago. This is Yellowstone. That's a particular place. This is a Cedar Creek. But this one, conservation biology jobs, that's a job board. So there's all kinds of jobs on there. And this botany jobs is a job board. And there's other ones too. There's a Texas A&M job board that we've got down there as well. So if you just click on any one of those, like the NSF-REU, we already saw it's too deep for you to even get to the bottom of. So between this, the lab job site or whatever you want to call this, the board of job boards, and the EVB jobs post I send, there's plenty. Finding an internship is not the question, right? It's just like figuring out which one you want to apply to and then going through the process. Okay. I mentioned this already, but this is the kind of last bit of the talk. So you want to think first before you move. You want to have a folder full of stuff that's ready to go when you start your application. You especially don't want to have something where your application times out. Like, oh, I'm going to start this job application on USA Jobs or something, and it's like clock starts ticking, and the thing times out, and you don't get it done because you have to go like work on your CV or something and get it ready. So you want to think first before you move, just like in a game of chess. And I'm going to share a couple of things. Only one thing. Let me just talk through it a little bit. A CV is a curriculum vitae, and that's just like all of the stuff you've ever done in your career. A resume is like the same thing, but it's only one page usually. There's rules about that. A list of references just means who's going to be your reference. You should think about that ahead of time. Is it your academic advisor? Maybe a faculty member you had in class? Maybe it's someone who knew you really well if you just got here to UD, someone you knew as a senior in high school or something, somebody you worked for, a boss at an old job. You have to figure that out. And you should think about like, how do I build a set of references that's really strong through time by the time you graduate? Like I said, work history, and then we'll talk a little bit about contact etiquette and strategy here. And I'm going to share with you this because I think the hardest thing that students have to face, especially if you're going to just try to contact a faculty member, like the hardest thing is writing a personal statement or a letter that's a contact letter. I find students have a real hard time with that. That's a barrier that's hard to cross. It's hard to write about yourself if you've never done it before. Like, oh, I got to write something, and how do I just write, this person doesn't know me, I'm going to be talking about myself. And you might feel like that you haven't done anything yet. So it's really anxiety inducing. So I wanted to just share one with you that someone sent to me once a while back that I thought was good, that can give you some sort of tips and ideas if you have to write something like this. And by the way, I was saying before, you should create a folder, and in the folder you can have like a Google Doc, and you can just try some of this. Write this text out. You can't write this just, especially if it's like a job board or a job application that's automated, like an online system, and you have to type it in right then. You can't come up with this. It's going to be terrible. So you better work on it ahead of time. And then if you work on it ahead of time, you can let somebody else read it and check it for errors, and just make sure it doesn't sound bad, or there's problems in the text. So you should have like a Google sheet where you write some of this stuff out, so you've got kind of an idea of what you want to say about yourself. Anyway, here's an example. This student wrote this to me a while back, trying to join my lab as a graduate student, but it could be the points, this didn't work out, but the points I want to make here are just sort of characteristics of what I think make a good letter that you might write to somebody, just to get in touch with them. Like, oh, I want to try to work in someone's lab at the University of Dayton, or I live in Montana and I'm going to try to, or I want to, whatever, just you're reaching out to try to contact someone. So this is the actual text. I redacted the name, so it makes it private or whatever. Okay, so the first point I want to make here is that the student, and I'm not going to read the whole letter out loud to you, but the student is saying, who's reaching out to me, I'm interested in conservation and habitat management, and your work at Billyak Park is particularly fascinating to me. Okay, the reason I'm sharing that with you is because when I read that, I know that it's not a form letter. You can't just write that to any ecology faculty member, because they're not working at Billyak Park. So this person at least took enough time to look at my website or learn a little bit about what I'm doing, right? So that makes it a little bit personalized, because sometimes when you're a faculty member, just like all of you get too many emails, right? Faculty members get a lot of emails. And if someone's just reaching out to you and saying, oh, I'd like to join your lab or be an intern in the summer with you, or be a grad student with you, if it looks like that student doesn't know the first thing about who you are or what you're doing, it's not very appealing. You just kind of, you're going to tend to just be like, ugh, what's going on here? Maybe just like, thank you for your interest, but you're not going to follow up. But this person has hooked me a little bit. Like, oh, they know who I am actually. They actually spend enough time looking at my resume or my website to know what kind of stuff I'm doing. Okay. Then at the bottom, they're telling me a little bit about, I'm not going to read it all, but they're saying, oh, I worked on this plant called Viola edulis. We did this sort of RStudio and SPSS for statistical analysis. And I know about this general lineage concepts, which is like a taxonomy thing. It doesn't really apply to me, but in any case, they're telling me a little bit about what they would bring to my laboratory. This is a really important thing for you to think about when you're writing a letter. It's like the classic mistake a student makes when they write their first letter is to not do that, to make it only about what they want to get out of the position and not what they want to bring into the position, right? It's like, oh, I want to get this internship because I want to get a job later. And this would be a perfect thing to help me get my job in the future if you just give me this internship. Obviously, the people who are going to hire you for that understand that it's a career development thing. We understand that. But if it doesn't look like that you're really interested in the position itself, or that you're going to bring something good to the team that summer, then you're going to be less appealing as an applicant. So, and this last sentence, I look forward to having a conversation with you. So this reads as friendly to me. And that's the other thing about this this process is you want the person to think that you're going to be friendly. I think that's the most important, the most important thing. I mean, actually, and let me just say this: what we really want, if you're trying to hire an intern for the summer, and you want to get an internship, right? You want to join something. What's happening is a team is being assembled. So a faculty member has got something they're going to do, or organization, Allwood, or whatever. They have something they have to get done, and they're going to put together a team to get it done. It's going to be 3 or 4 people, or who knows. You're going to be working on a team. It's almost never just an individual. The most important thing is that the team doesn't get ruined by personal dynamics falling apart. If that happens, then everything's gone. It's lost. The summer's lost. Everything's lost. And so it's really important, first of all, that the person you're interacting with, that it reads as friendly, like you read as a friendly person, that you have a positive interaction with that person, that you plan to bring positive interactions to the team, that you really focus on that. And also, just to say, if you have experiences that are team kind of experiences, you should think of that as a skill that you want to highlight. That he didn't do it, this person in this letter necessarily, but for example, if you have any kind of leadership, like, oh, I work for a student organization and we've put together things on campus. So many UD students work for organizations. Oh, and we've worked as a team to put together, a program or something. If you have any kind of experience like that, even though it might not seem like biology, it can be really important for a person like me, if I'm looking to put together a team in the summer, and to go, oh, well, at least I know she worked with other people and they did some stuff together, and it worked. It turned out good. So that's like an important part of it. Oh yeah, I shouldn't have this reads as friendly piece here. This is just what I'm trying to say, is that all of what you're working on should come across as a positive interaction. And here's what you want to do in those letters: introduce yourself, describe what you've worked on, describe your interest. So this is like your cold letter or your statement. Describe the interest in the work the person is doing, or if it's like the Ohio EPA, or if it's Allwood Audubon, or if it's a botanical garden in Chicago. Just that the person who reads the letter or your statement is like, oh, this student really knows what we do here, and cares about the work we're doing. Describe what you've worked on and what they're doing, how it fits together. Try to be friendly. Also, if you're doing a cold email, don't make the person scroll. That's another good thing about this letter. It can fit. I don't need to scroll. If it gets too long, the person's probably not going to get to the end of it. So it can just be 2 paragraphs. This is a little bit on the long side, but 2 or 3 paragraphs is plenty. And then attach your resume to the end of it, or a CV. This is what this person is saying, is I've attached my CV for more information. So hopefully that's helpful in terms of like getting you started down that path. And like I said before, you should write it up in your Google Docs. Get started. Let somebody else read it. Spend some time on that piece. Not like weeks and weeks, but just like take some care with that text and make sure it reads as friendly. Make sure that this comes across in a positive way. And so, let's see, that's 40 minutes, so that's good. Good time to end anyway. This is the end of my talk. And so let's do Q&A now. If people have questions, or you can also just type in the chat if you want. And then otherwise, I'll stay around in case anybody wants to talk about BIO 499 itself.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions for Dr. McEwan? One thing I was going to add for references is make sure you tell the people ahead of time you're going to list them as a reference, and ask them if they can write you a letter of reference. My preference is if people say, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? Because then that gives me the opportunity to say no if I cannot write them a strong letter of recommendation. And then if you're going to be applying to a lot of things, give them the deadlines when stuff is due and where they send a letter to, and send them reminders.
Yes.
Any other questions? Somebody's asking if you could post this presentation somewhere.
Yeah, I'll post it. Actually, if we record it, did we record it?
Yeah.
So we could post the recording. Actually, sorry, I'm going to go scroll back up. On this jobs board at the top, I normally have posted the PDF of this talk, but we can just post the video. Maybe it's fine, right? Or maybe we can load it to YouTube or something. I don't know what the best way to do it is.
Any other questions? Um, are REUs just for undergrads?
Yes, I think they're only for undergrads. However, there are things out there that work. Okay, so if you're going to graduate in May, it doesn't mean you have to give up the idea of doing internship kinds of positions. Again, because of COVID, everything is questionable because like a lot of people's plans got canceled last summer and we don't know what the status is going to be for this coming summer. But in a normal year, a lot of people have positions in the summer, faculty members who are trying to fill those positions, and those we will share those in the EVB jobs post under a heading that says something like post graduation positions. So we've got in that EVB jobs post, we've got internships, grad opportunities, and post graduation. So those are like positions for people who are graduating. Some of those positions really end up being quite like an RU or an internship kind of experience. They might even be internships technically. It wouldn't be the NSF RU itself, but for example, faculty members a lot of times have NSF grants and they might be hiring a team to do stuff. And so you might be able to apply to those kind of positions. Also, some agencies and organizations have, like for example, Allwood and Glenn Helen used to do this. Anyway, some other organizations, they have positions that are either designed for people who've graduated or end up being better for those people anyway, because the thing is, a lot of places have stuff that go into the fall, right? Or like you have a position that you need filled and it goes into the fall. And if you're a college student, you have to go back to class. You have to go back to your campus. And so you can't be in those positions. So there's for some things, it can be an advantage for you to have graduated actually. One thing that we had a student do a few years ago is do the Dolphin Island internship. It's a marine biology internship. That was after she graduated though. And it was partly, I think, because that the work they were doing there was in the fall. And so you can't have college students do that. You have to have people who've graduated.
Anything else? All right, I think the non-EVB people could leave if you want, and then you are going to say a word about the EVB internship.
Yeah, mostly. Oh, here's another chat. Mostly if people just have a question. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I just wanted to stay on in case people want to talk about that. Nope.
Okay,
Just us.
I will stop recording.
Okay.